up, our next speaker is Agata. Why does my tablet hate me, everybody? Agata, come join me, please. Oh, we lose her? Oh, chairs. Who wants to sing with me? I've always wanted an opportunity to share my voice with the world. Agata, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Don't make me sing.
From Hootsuite, do you want to sing with me?
No.
What if we sing your bio?
All for you. You can do it.
Okay, I'll let you give yourself a little intro.
Okay, cool.
And then you can get started.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm Agata. I'm from Hootsuite. I'm the Director of Talent Operations, and today I'm going to talk about scaling up talent. If you got a program that was printed, it will say my name, and then it says like Ambrosia will talk about open source comes to HR. She's not here, and I'm also not talking about open source comes to HR, but I will talk about it as a reference. Ooh, that's useful. Thank you. So I will talk about it a little bit more at the end of my presentation, but I'm going to talk about scaling up talent. So because it's such a different topic, I really wanted to make sure you guys understood what we're going to talk about. So the first one is really understanding the problem organizations face, especially when it comes to talent. Then I'm going to give you an approach, and I'm going to reference it as like the jacket. And then I'm going to talk about how success is made in regards to talent strategies. Now, I only have 20 minutes to talk about this, so instead of going deep on everything and talking as fast as I can, I'm actually going to give you guys a real example case study that you can use as a reference point to take back to your organization. And then lastly, I'm going to give you some resources that will help you apply any of the material today to your organizations, regardless of where you are. Before I get started, a little bit about why me. So I kind of skipped that bio entry because I thought this was really relevant on kind of setting the stage. I've been fortunate for the last decade to work with 3 really high growth organizations. First at the Olympics, Olympic Broadcasting Services. They're a subsidiary of the IOC. When I started, they were about 60 employees, and when I left, we had hired over 5,000 people. And then I went to Lululemon. And Lululemon, Vancouver iconic organization, I was employee 250 at HQ, and I left when they were about 1,300. During that time, they scaled hundreds of stores and expanded internationally. And then lastly, I've been with Hootsuite for 2 years, and I was employee 300, very familiar feeling joining an organization that size. And then over the past 2 years, we've grown to over 800. From the beginning, they were a global company and continue to expand, and right now we operate in over 10 countries. Awesome. So let's talk about the problem. The problem organizations face all the time. And if you were in the keynote this morning with Eric, when I was watching it, I was like, wow, I have so much in comparison to him, like so many similarities, except I'm taking this down to the topic of talent, or I'm going to quote HR. So organizations really struggle to figure out where to invest the resources when it comes to talent strategies. Where's the biggest bang for your buck? And then on top of that, you hear about all these talent programs that promise great outcomes and benefits, but so few times do organizations either achieve those benefits, but on top of that, they're unable to qualify them or quantify them at the end. And lastly, the problem we're facing is that every organization, no matter if you're a startup, small, medium business, large, or an enterprise organization, everyone has a talent competitor. Now, that talent competitor might like your people because they know how to position against you. You might have a talent competitor because they'll pay a lot of money for your people because you spent all the money training them. So that's just a reality that organizations face. They don't know, where to invest. They don't know if they're actually investing in the right things. And then on top of that, they're facing this external thing that organizations are taking their talent. So the approach. I'm going to ask you guys to consider this approach as reality. You don't have to agree with me today. I always reference this as like trying on a new jacket. You're not really sure if it makes you look good. You're not really sure if you're going to purchase it. So for the remaining of the presentation, I'm going to just ask you to pretend it to be true and pretend you like it. After this presentation, you can take what you want or disregard it, or take just the sleeves. So here's the approach. Know your business. Now, so many organizations that I've worked with, people assume that the employees in your organization know your business. And they may know your product, but do they know all your products? Do they know how you generate revenue? Do they know if you're profitable? Do they know what will happen if X, Y, Z happens and you're unable to achieve a certain objective? So the first approach is make sure everyone knows your business. The second one is around giving HR people access to business leaders. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of sidebar here and say HR is usually known as an administrative department. That has changed, but not everyone thinks that way yet. And so HR has been known to attract and hire talent. But what about the last part? We're now responsible for retaining that talent. And how do we do that? Those are the talent strategies we're talking about today. Now, HR can't do the talent strategies by themselves. Otherwise, it just becomes an HR thing. And that's not really connected to the business in that case. So for this to be successful, you have to let your HR people have access to business leaders. Why is that so important? Business leaders make business decisions. So it all works together. Now, the third one is actually really interesting, and I was like, oh, this doesn't really fit exactly into this, but let's pretend that you hire, most of the time, great leaders. I'm not saying don't promote people, don't give them a chance, don't have systems for that, but if you don't have a majority of great leaders in your organization, and you have junior leaders, you're gonna have junior leader problems. And junior leader problems equals attrition, which goes back to the problem of having talent and retaining that talent. So hire great leaders, and just know that they are the ones that develop more great leaders, and they're the ones that make the biggest impact on a culture. Now, lastly, this approach that we're going to try on in the jacket size is align your talent strategies to the organization. I'm going to go into that a little bit deeper in a second, but somehow these words look right on the screen, but sometimes we're just like, I don't know really what that means. So I'm going to go through that in a sec. Okay. After being with 3 organizations that have grown and shrunk and grown again, I can say that success is made, not born. There is no secret formula to being at a successful organization. The organization makes the success. So here's how you get there. So I already said, know your business. And now there's a strong correlation of your business objectives and your people objectives. Do you have the right people to achieve those business objectives? Do you need something different out of the people? Do you need more people? Do you need less people? Or do you need a whole new mix? Now, once you do that, once you understand kind of what you need to achieve those business objectives, and I'm going to give you guys a case study, and this will all kind of demystify right now, then you have to assign some talent strategies or talent programs or whatever you want to call them, HR things. I always say no more than 3 to 5 big, chunky goals that support the business objectives. They should completely correlate. I need to develop products, so I need more software developers. We want to be first to market, you're going to need more marketing people. We want to be the biggest and baddest, then you're going to have to hire the biggest and baddest salespeople, whatever that is for you. And now the one thing that people forget, once they get there, they know their business objectives, they understand what they need from the people, and then they set their talent goals. The last thing that I've seen on and on again, completely missed, is assigning your resources. Now, most organizations are very clear on what resources they don't have. So a startup will say, I don't have money. A medium-sized business will be like, we don't have time. But you have other resources. There are 3 main resources, and you can leverage them. Time, effort, and money. Outsourcing HR strategies or talent strategies is actually the best thing you can do if you have the money, because you're going to get an expert, they're going to do it quick, and you're going to be able to see if it works, similar to that lean principle. If you don't have money, make it a labor of love. I don't know how many times in all my organizations, people just wanted to do it to see if it worked and be part of something bigger. And then time. If you're ahead of the curve in your industry, or this product doesn't even exist right now, maybe you just take a little bit of time. Not too much time, not in tech. All right, so I gave you a bunch of information. I gave you the problem, I gave you an approach, and I told you that success is made, not born. So let's talk about an example. Let's take all these things and pull it together. So at the end of 2014, At Hootsuite, we had grown 100% year over year from the previous year. It was crazy. And then we started to really realize we had a problem, though. After all that growth, we realized that we were bleeding technical talent. For anyone that doesn't know what technical talent is, I'm just going to demystify software engineers, software developers, essentially the people that do the coding. And it was like a really big deal. So here's what we were facing in 2015. This was our what. We knew that the average industry turnover in software development was 20%. 20%. That's crazy. How do you get anything done if 1/5 of the people walk out the door? And on top of that, we knew that we needed 30% growth in our software development team to be able to achieve our goals. So why do these things matter? So we did an analysis of our turnover, and we realized that the people that were leaving, our software developers, actually thought they didn't have career opportunity at Hootsuite. None of that was true. It was far from the truth, in fact. But they didn't know that. That was their truth. On top of that, when we talked to people when they were leaving, they actually said Hootsuite was an amazing place to work. In fact, they said, I would love to come back and I would refer this place. And so it was really weird that we were having people leave, but they're like, we love this company, it's amazing, they're up to great things, but they were leaving for that. And then the last one was, it was hard to not blame someone else. It was hard not to say, hey, this is us, we have a bit of a problem internally, and it's not them. So you have to look at it as both internally and externally. And it was really hard for us to do that. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to take accountability as an organization or any organization. And at the end of the day, the issue wasn't people were poaching our people. We weren't doing a good job internally. From a business objectives, we had a very clear roadmap and business objectives. I think Hootsuite does an amazing job educating its employees at town halls and through communication around our objectives and the roadmap. So we were really clear what we wanted to achieve in 2015. And we quickly identified the talent gap. We didn't have enough technical people, and we didn't have enough leaders in that technical group to be able to achieve those objectives. And even if we had the right mix of people, we still didn't have enough people. We had to grow. We just needed them, or we had to change our business objectives. And that was, do we really want to change business objectives? I don't know. I think we were pretty positioned well. So here's how we did it. Here's what we did about it. We created something called career paths. Now, this isn't new. And if you're like rolling your eyes, you're like, oh God, I've heard about this before. It's true, it's not new. But we didn't have them at Hootsuite. And in fact, career paths didn't actually resonate to our audience because they were like, well, we're in software development. So we created career paths that were relevant to them. And we called them Guru Track and Leadership Track. And I'm just going to quickly explain how it worked. Essentially, a software developer joins our organization from university. They're a junior engineer, or junior software developer, get promoted to an intermediate, and then they get promoted again to a senior. They're just there. And then all of a sudden, they get to make a choice. Do they want to go through a leadership stream and become a software development lead and lead a team? Or do they want to get more technical? And then at that point, they keep on going up their career paths, and they can go all the way in either side of the stream, all the way to VP. And if at any point they want to say, hey, I was in the Guru track and I'm at level 6, I want to try the leadership track, we'll help them get there. And if they don't like it, they can move back, and vice versa. And we've seen that really successful. And then on top of that, we educated our employees. And that's not as simple as rolling it at once. We have to educate, educate, educate. We grew 30%, or we're planning on growing 30%. So you have to keep that information going. And then we educated the industry. So once we realized, like, hey, this is actually catching on, we took, Ryan Holmes, the CEO of Hootsuite, wrote a thought leadership and posted it on LinkedIn. And we had so many shares and so many engagements on that article. And every conference I go to, someone pulls me aside. How does that work? Did it really work? That's so cool. Do you do that in any other department? And now we have aligned our practices to support the Guru leadership tracks. Our pay is equal at the same levels. Titles are recognized in the industry with different titles, and our options, and there's many, many more. So that's great. And I told you at the beginning, the problem organizations face is they can't quantify or qualify if it worked. So here's our outcomes. In 2015, we reduced our turnover in this department by 5.5%, which, if you think about it, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot. especially in tech and especially in software development guys. In fact, because of this initiative, we had the highest drop in turnover in this department. Further to that, we had growth. We had 29% growth in that department. Now, interestingly enough, we didn't realize this, but because people stayed with us and they really liked the fact that they had career growth, they brought more people in. And it kind of is obvious, but we didn't actually do it for that reason. But it made hiring easier. So it kind of all started to work together. Now, I'm going to go into kind of the resource section of this presentation because I only have a couple more minutes left. And I really want to talk about why you should look at these resources and how you can apply these within your organization. So I told you I was going to tell you a little bit about HROS. HROS is open source HR, and open source is a tech term for open source APIs. And Ambrosia Vertesi and Lars Schmidt of Amplify Talent, they co-founded this association. And it's like completely free out of their own time. And they said, why do we as HR people hide all the things we know? Why can't everyone learn from it? And so what they did is created a few case studies and then invited other companies to share their cases and so forth. And it's snowballed. It hasn't even been out for a year. And these are free resources. Just go to hros.co, find something that's relevant for you, and learn what other companies have done. I urge you not only to learn from it, but to share it to other HR people or other people in the business. It's not an HR lingo type of site, so it's really cool. On top of that, once you're ready, create your own case. Share what you've learned. The second resource is the HR Tech Group. Now, the HR Tech Group is a Vancouver-based association for HR professionals, and I know most of you guys aren't in HR, but essentially, they're a resource for knowing what's happening in the Vancouver tech industry. So we get salary surveys annually, which is a big deal because tech salaries change a lot. They have data, real-time data. If you're like, hey, I want to know what people are doing for benefits or maternity leave top-ups or something else, they're the ones that collecting that data for the members, and everyone benefits. On top of that, they have a community-like feeling, special interest groups for people within the organization. So I highly urge you to look at that. The last one is referred as SHRM, Society of Human Resources. Now, this one might kind of get me in trouble because it's not a Canadian-based association. They're actually in the US. The reason I actually recommend them is because, one, they are so big that they can splice out the industry that you're in, whether it's tech or something different. And on top of that, if you're ever going to operate in the US, which many organizations plan not to, but they end up doing it, they're a really great resource to help you there. Now, I have a couple more resources for you. Just follow me on Twitter. After this presentation, I'm tweeting out four of those HROS case studies so that you can get a good glimpse. The first one will be around recruiting in a niche industry. And I always find it interesting because in tech, I'm always like, oh, everyone's in software development, but that's so far from the truth. And sometimes you need talent that is super interesting. And I talked to a woman the other day, and she's like, well, I need someone that has a PhD in engineering, a research background, and has experience in robotics. And I'm like, so you need one of these guys? She's like, I need 5, and I don't care where they come from. And that's a real challenge. So how do you hire those people if you know they're not on LinkedIn? So this case study will talk about that. The second case study will be around employer referral programs and how you can revamp it so that's more relevant to today. And then how do you leverage internal employees for internal development? That's a nice cost savings. And that's how you can start looking at those resources I was talking about, and how do you move them in your organization to solve those business problems with talent strategies. That is it for me today. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your attendance. Take care.
Very informative on scaling up talent. Next.